And a pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen, here on the East Coast in the Philadelphia area, where the temperature right now is about 14 degrees. I just got off the phone with a friend in Florida who reminded me that in Florida it is 82 degrees in Delray Beach and invited me on down. What am I doing here? Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone around the world, around our website. My name is Irv Homer. It is Monday, January the 12th. And you can participate in this conversation for the next hour by using our telephone number at 215-253-8877. 215-253-8877. And we have a chat room for you to put your questions or comments on. Please feel free to avail yourself. Don't wait until the end of the program. If you have something that you want to ask, something comment that you want to make, please feel free. This is a very uninhibited program. We have no commercials. We have no sponsors. We have no... What's the matter, Shani? My dog is very upset tonight for some reason or other. Be quiet. Be quiet. Hey, quiet. And so it is a free form. All comments are fair game. We take no position. We try to look at both sides on every issue. However, I do have opinions, and I am known to be rather opinionated. Wednesday night, we will have as our guest returning credit expert Pearl Polto, where some information that is of interest to all of you who deal with credit will be able to be discussing it with Pearl Polto. Shana, be quiet. What's wrong with you tonight? You got a bug up your tussie? George Bush will only be the president until January the 20th, so shut up. Now, enough is enough, or you're going to go in the basement. Anyway, our comments are for tonight is, do you think, ladies and gentlemen, that Barack Obama is prepared to be the President of the United States in light of the speech and press conference that President Bush held this afternoon? He pointed out something that I've often said many, many times, and that is, it is a lot easier on the outside being an expert than being on the inside and be an expert. And I relate that to the sports stations in Philadelphia as a result of the Eagles' win yesterday over the New York Giants. I've never heard so many experts on radio who probably never even threw a football know what was wrong with the game yesterday and why the Eagles won. And then tuning into the New York station, WABC, I never heard so many experts up there that never played football or how to call a game, knowing how horrible the Giants were. Kind of mind-boggling. Yes, Ron, we have a caller over here. Yes, Ron.
Well, like they always say, there are 10 million general managers of a team, but only one gets paid.
Well, that's comparable to what I think when David Ben-Gurion met Eisenhower in the White House, and he said, "It's an honor, Mr. President, to be here with you in a country of 280 million people, and you are the president." And President Eisenhower said to David Ben-Gurion, he said, "And about you, David, you are the president of Israel." He says, "Yeah, but," he said, "I'm the president of 6 million presidents." So that's about basically the same content, Ron. But I just...
Like they always say, everyone knows how to do everyone else's job better than they do.
Well, it's clear and evident because in my broadcast career, I've said that many people say, "Oh, talk radio is easy to do," and I invited people on as a guest. I said, "Great. Come into the station with the approval of management. I'll let you do 3 hours of radio this afternoon." And of the thousands of listeners that I had, no one ever said okay. The same as this format that we do here on the Irv Homer Show on the internet. If anyone wants to be a guest, just feel free to give us a call at 267-269-8221. or 215-322-8685, and you can do the program yourself. I don't mind sitting by and learning from someone. So there's an open invitation for anyone who wants to appear as a host. It is symbolic that when you go to meetings, PTA meetings, Board of Supervisors meetings, PTA meetings, you may have 300-400 people, and boobuses sit there with their thumb in their mouth waiting for somebody else to say something. What is wrong with the American people that they don't participate in conversation. Talk radio should be flooded with all of the listeners to a talk program. And yet it's the same people over and over again, to where stations that have major market listeners have to screen you and prevent you from calling more than once a month. Are you shy? Are you bashful? Are you afraid you'll make some type of grammatical error? What is it with the American people? I've been in this business for some 40 years and it never fails to amaze me. Generation after generation are afraid to pick up a telephone and speak on the electric radio or appear before a television camera unless there's a mob scene. And that's indicative of the Eagles' win yesterday. In a mob, hey, we're number one. I'd say that if the cameraman or the reporter would say, could you come outside, I'd like to interview, the person would poop themselves. Are we a nation of sissies? Are we a nation of cowards when it comes to voicing or expressing an opinion? Well, the politicians know that. And you're known as sheeple. You want to be led by the hand. You want someone else to do your thinking for you. You're afraid to think for yourselves. And it absolutely boggles my mind that the same callers and the same people appear over and over and over again to a point where they have to be screened. A couple of reports here. One that we reported on the Irv Homer Show, both on my commercial program, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on WBCB 1490 AM in Levittown, Pennsylvania. And that is that Israel wanted to attack Iran many months ago and wanted to knock out the nuclear capability of Iran, as it did once before, when it took out the Osiric plant in Iraq. And now this week, the New York Times finally had a big expose, 2 pages of about President Bush's reluctance to give Israel the permission to fly over Iraq to take out the nuclear capability of the nation of Iran. Mr. Bush, what the hell are you waiting for? We have passed in our country, under legislation, the ability to have first strike capability. Usually America is in a reactionary position, such as Pearl Harbor, such as the World Trade Center, twice, 1993 and 2001, that we will not make the first strike in any country that is a threat to the United States. That policy has been changed, and so we do now have first strike capability. However, many politicians are reluctant to give the president that type of power. Now that President Barack Obama will be the president, he will have first strike capability. And what boggles my mind is usually the liberals will do the things that the conservatives should have done, and the conservatives do what the liberals should have done. If you remember, President Nixon opened up rapprochement with mainland China. As a conservative Republican, he got away with it. But if a liberal Democrat would have tried that, he would have been destroyed in the press. So do not be surprised. Irv Homer's prediction is that Barack Obama will end up being a bigger hawk. I repeat, will be a bigger hawk than George Bush. He will not have the patience or the tolerance to stand by knowing he has first strike capability. And that you can take to the bank. He will get away with it. George Bush can't. And that's the name of that tune. The thing that I fear in this whole confrontation right now of the expectations versus reality. The expectations is that you have in the White House as of January the 21st a peace candidate, and that is Barack Obama. Apparently, many people do not know the history of the Middle East. And I was at a gathering yesterday of some learned people at a luncheon get-together, and there were college professors there, a former congressperson, lawyers, reporters, much younger than myself. And I've come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, that the age difference that I have versus other folks that are in the media or on the air is that I have lived that period of history and they have read about it or don't have the faintest idea about it. The big push right now is allegedly we have contained Iraq and Al-Qaeda and the terrorists. And victory is ours, saith the Lord, President Bush. The big push now is in Afghanistan. I don't know how many of you listening or watching tonight remember the war that Russia had with Afghanistan. If you think Iraq is a snake pit, take a look and review the history of Russia in Afghanistan. If we fall into the same trap in Afghanistan as the Russians fell into, you are going to see the escalation of American dead. We were warned by the French, which is history to many of you folks, and I have to be less critical of you folks because of your ignorance of the Vietnam War. You just don't know. You just don't know what led to the Vietnam War. You don't know the promises that were made by the United States to Ho Chi Minh. You don't know. And you're not taught it. But the French had been soundly defeated at a city by the name of Dien Bien Phu by the Vietnamese. And France warned Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon not to go into Vietnam. But since we had the largest army, the most powerful fighting force, we're the number one country, we ignored the history of Vietnam. And not because of the fact that we didn't have brave soldiers there and that our troops didn't provide. None of that nonsense. I don't want to hear it from you people. But we did not win in Vietnam. The Chinese, which outnumber us about 100-1, couldn't defeat Vietnam and occupy it. France couldn't defeat it and occupy it. And we couldn't defeat it and occupy it. And now I'm afraid that under the Barack Obama administration, we are going to go into Afghanistan with a surge that allegedly was successful in Iraq and try the same thing in Afghanistan, and we're going to lose. We're going to lose a lot of men, and we're going to lose a lot of respect around the world. Russia still remembers the humiliation of the loss in Afghanistan. No country wants to be humiliated. And so Russia will do everything it can, along with its allies in Iran and our friends who are the oil-producing nations, who are more concerned about their survival as the heads of those countries than they are loyalty to the United States. And if we get bogged down in Afghanistan, you're going to see something, including the draft in this country. This snowball going down the mountain is not going to be stopped with the foreign policy that we have today. And so, words of wisdom that I'm saying, watch out for Afghanistan and our escalation of troops into Afghanistan. If you listen to radio critically and listen to what is known as PSAs, and PSAs, ladies and gentlemen, are public service announcements. Public service announcements are the answer to providing radio stations with their obligation to be community oriented. And so if you have an organization, you're going to have a fundraiser or something, you send a PSA, and hopefully the program director, when there is a moment in the broadcast day of a radio station or a television station, will play your PSA. Well, there has been an escalation, ladies and gentlemen, as I listen to radio constantly, of the requirements of 18-year-olds to sign up for the draft. And the conclusion of this public service announcement is, remember, it is the law. Now, why do you think they are now promoting the fact that registering for the draft at 18 years of age is the law? Nothing happens by accident. Everything is planned. And I suggest that Barack Obama is going to be a bigger hawk than George W. Bush is, or was. Let's go to the chat room and see what it says here. Irv, do you think the U.S. will eventually be at war with Iran alongside of Israel? If the United States feels, in my opinion, that Iran is a nuclear threat, it will not want Israel to participate in any preemptive strike at Iran. I repeat, if the United States under the Barack Obama administration feels that Iran is a potential threat with the development of a nuclear bomb using Israeli intelligence, the United States will not allow Israel to attack Iran, but will do it itself. The reason being that we were at war once with Iran, or maybe you forgot. But for 8 years, while we supported Saddam Hussein and supported him in Iraq against Iran, we've never signed a peace treaty with Iran. So we still are technically at war with Iran. If you remember Desert Storm, Israel was ready to bomb Iraq. The Air Force was on alert. The Israeli Air Force was on alert. It has strategic nuclear weapons, which are, I've never figured out, a strategic nuclear weapon kills just as much, but there are weapons that are designed for defense rather than offense. And Israel was told, do not launch your aircraft. As a result, Israel took 35